Welcome to the Popcorner Threes Pod. This is a brand new podcast where we combine movies, TV, comedy, and the NBA. And books, I guess, for this episode. Books that then became movies. So we keep our topics really focused for your listening convenience. It's kind of like a Reddit thread come to life. And speaking of topics, that topic today is placing NBA All-Stars into Hogwarts Houses. So to do that with me, I have a very special guest. Usually I try to have actors or comedians on the show. Today, I have none of those things, but I have my childhood friend, Neel Radia. I've known him since kindergarten. Great to talk hoops with. Great to talk Harry Potter with. What's up, Neel?
Not too much. Doing well. A little insulted that you don't consider me an actor or a comedian, but considering I was one of the actors that really got your filmmaking career spurred.
Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. And I think the rules are pretty self-explanatory. Cue Harry Potter music, maybe. Depends on how I edit this. So basically, I'll set the stage. Imagine that this year's 2021 All-Stars arrive at Hogwarts Stadium. All the NBA All-Stars are wide-eyed. They're coming in on their duck boats with their lanterns. Some are first years, Some have been there before. And Neel and I are playing the role of the Sorting Headband. And we're placing this year's All-Stars, just this year, 2021 All-Stars, into Hogwarts Houses. So we've split this up by player and by conference. We'll go one by one. We're going to get started with the Eastern Conference, Neel, and I'm going to go first with what I think is one of the more fun players. So Kyrie Irving gets out of his seat, his table starts clapping, and he walks up to the Sorting Headband. I won't do my British accent, but the Sorting Headband goes, Kyrie, curious. You're very smart, but you don't always use those smarts for good. With your flat earth theories and saying you're a genius and an artist. And also, you seem to be a little jealous, a little petty, right? Those comments about LeBron, about not having someone to take clutch shots before. And the Sorting Headband screams out, Slytherin.
Can't argue like that. That's just exactly right. Like he is smart enough for Ravenclaw, but flat Earth, you're out. Right. So Kevin Durant steps up to the hat, or the headband, I suppose.
The headband.
Though, if I had my choice, I would have gone with Rip Hamilton style sorting goggles, but that's just me. He had a great start to his career. OKC, Russell Westbrook, small market, probably wanted to be in Seattle, but not really your choice. But then he left. So Hufflepuff, you're out.
Correct.
Loyalty, not so much. Then Twitter, the burner accounts, what the hell is that, man? It's cunning, I suppose, though you're apparently not a very successful attempt at it.
Right.
Yeah, but you left in search of a title, and you kind of put your personal ambition ahead of everything else, what people think of you. So join your man Kyrie, Slytherin.
So now that two Brooklyn Nets are sorted into their houses, James Harden gets up from his table. He dribbles up to the headband a lot.
For about 20 seconds.
Although not so much recently. He goes up to the headband, and the headband is extremely intrigued. Mr. Harden. And the first thing the headband says is he goes, you seem like a perfect Ravenclaw. I mean, you're an analytics darling, and you have a very calm demeanor, and just something about this feels right. But as we learned at the end of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, where Harry realizes that the Sorting Hat takes choice into account, James Harden starts begging to be with his friends in Slytherin. Sorting Headband does what it has to do. It kind of ignores its own instinct, puts the choice of the player in front of it, and says, you would have been a great Ravenclaw, James. but you're going to be in Slytherin.
For those of you who don't know, I'm kind of about as qualified to speak on James Harden as anyone because I'm a Nets fan who spent like 7 of my last 10 years living in Houston. And so I do think I am glad you put the Ravenclaw consideration in there because everything good everyone's saying about James Harden now, he's always done that.
So finally, we placed all the whole Nets big three into Slytherin, which I think is pretty accurate. And I'm glad that we were on the same page with that.
Yeah. We're the new evil empire.
Yeah. And so now let's actually shift over to their biggest threat in the East, you could say, the Philadelphia 76ers. And the young boy, Ben Simmons, strolls up to the headband. Neel, take it away.
Yeah, very difficult, Ben. Very difficult. Because, quite frankly, you don't have much going on. Like you're not a Slytherin. You're too quiet, reserved, and you're not like actively going out to get your way.
Mm-hmm.
You're not really a Ravenclaw either, because if you were a bit smarter, you'd know that at least the threat of a jump shot is probably worth it.
Yeah, I don't think you're allowed to be in Ravenclaw unless you like shoot 38% from three.
And I don't think you're in Hufflepuff because in addition to loyalty, Hufflepuff is in part about being a hard worker, gritty grinder, and like Ben Simmons is not that. Like he's this exact same player he was when he came to the league. You can get to the rim at will. You're a great defender, great rebounder, great passer. But you haven't evolved. You haven't shown much interest in like getting a lot better. But the problem is it's not really a Gryffindor either. Like there's not really much there. I've had Ben Simmons as a background Gryffindor. Like think like Dean Thomas, Seamus Finnegan, like Parvati Patil. Like think like he's like that kind of Gryffindor. Honestly, truthfully, I guess in a weird, convoluted way, there's something brave about being like, I know what I'm good at, and that's all I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm.
But more importantly, this one was process of elimination.
The instinct here would be to put him in Hufflepuff because of just like you said, it's just like But I think there's something a little more unique and specific about background Gryffindor, and so I'm with it. I'm with it. Ben Simmons as Parvati Patel. So now Ben's teammate, Joel Embiid, goes up to the headband. And Joel on his way high fives people, laughs with people, does some trash talk on his way to the seat.
Films a Hulu Has Live Sports commercial.
Hogwarts has live sports. And he sits on the chair. And it's just like, all right, let's go, headband, whatever. I don't care, whatever. And the headband is like, wow, everyone likes you. You're really outgoing, gregarious, rambunctious. I think one of the confusing aspects, I think, that the headband is sorting through is like, all this trash talk, and the trash talk could potentially be something that's like Slytherin-esque. But at the same time, it seems a little more playful than that. And I think you got to take into account that Embiid has been really loyal to Philly thus far and kind of always speaks on how much he loves the city of Philadelphia and how much it matches his personality, how much he loves playing there. And you mentioned hard work and grinding when it comes to Hufflepuff. And we might not have been able to say that about Embiid before this year, but now in this kind of like MVP, fighting for the MVP season, I think it's pretty clear that he's put the work in. And the last thing that the Sorting Headband looks at and is kind of like, all right, I think this is going to help me make my decision, is he cried when he lost to the Raptors, hashtag 4 bounces, Kawhi. And I just think if you cry after a loss, you're a Hufflepuff, period. Jaylen Brown walks up the aisle. Go ahead, Neel.
All right. So I see started career kind of touted 3rd overall pick, but your first few years kind of in the shadows. First it's Kyrie's team, or Jason Tatum's the better young star, Like it's like, oh, the Celtics are built around Brad Stevens. It's like, so I'll say that first, the Celtics as a whole, with Brad Stevens at the top, are a Ravenclaw team.
Yeah.
But Jaylen Brown came into the league mostly as like a defense first hustler, like dive on the floor for loose balls kind of guy, and then he grinded his way up to be a top flight scorer, now household name. So Jaylen Brown, go join Joel. Welcome to Hufflepuff.
So now his teammate, Jason Tatum, steps up. Calm, cool, collected. Says, "What's up, Jaylen?" Sits on the chair. And the headband is like, Jason Tatum, breakout year last year after a sophomore slump. Everything about you is just kind of pure. You know, you're a blue blood. You went to Duke. Now you're on the Celtics, which is, one of the greatest franchises in the NBA. I think you rightly called them as a Brad Stevens team that they're a Ravenclaw team, but I would almost say that the franchise in general kind of probably has some Gryffindor lineage. And being a big wing, which I think is important for your best player right now, he also doesn't really have any off the court issues. In fact, all of his off the courts are positives. He's got a great story with him and his mom. And then he also has a very cute son, Deuce Tatum. And the final piece of the puzzle, as the Sorting Headband is thinking about this, is when did Tatum perform his worst? And it was when he was playing alongside Slytherin, Kyrie Irving. And so I think,
ooh, I like this.
I think all signs point to Jason Tatum, Gryffindor. Neel, the long-armed Giannis Antetokounmpo, starts striding, takes a giant Euro step through the aisle.
All right, Giannis. So I think we're going to go through some, just like we did with Ben Simmons, we're going to go through some process of elimination.
Sure.
Your game still it's dependent almost entirely on athleticism and physicality. So not really Ravenclaw traits. He's very like team first, not me first. So not Slytherin. And I think, like, more importantly, we've talked about it before. He's a very jovial, happy person, and he signed his contract. He's shown he's loyal. He's proven his loyalty to small market Milwaukee. Giannis Antetokounmpo, Hufflepuff.
Yeah, I think that one's kind of a no-brainer, honestly. Swish. Suddenly, Bradley Beal appears, jumping up from his table, just getting buckets, and he goes up to the Sorting Headband, and the Sorting Headband, sort of similar to Giannis, actually, doesn't really take long with it. It gets put on Bradley Beal's head, and he just goes, "Wait, you still play for the Wizards?" All right, Hufflepuff. And that's it. Okay, so Bradley Beal takes his place with the Hufflepuffs and leaves room for a first year. Aw, Zach LaVine of the Bulls.
Man, not too many first years can like dunk from the free throw line.
Yeah, Jaylen Brown was also a first year, we forgot to mention, but yes, exactly. He's a first year at Hogwarts, but he's played in the Quidditch dunk contest before. He would like put the broomstick between his legs and then score the quaffle or whatever. People were like, "Oh, 50."
Did you ever play the Quidditch World Cup video game?
Oh, 100%. Great game.
It's like the special moves where like they toss the quaffle up and like swing with the bat.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. It's actually funny that you mentioned his fellow first year Jaylen Brown, because I think they're similar in a lot of ways. Like, he came into the league, what we talked about, hyper athletic, just a dunker who's like kind of like a 9th, 10th man. Then he's a serviceable player, volume scorer, efficient scorer, all around player. He's a grinder. Zach LaVine, we're on a run here. Hufflepuff.
Nick Vucevic comes up, and at this point, the Sorting Headband is just on a roll. Like, because I mean, you got to imagine that the sorting process, like actually at Hogwarts, like in real Harry Potter life, takes forever, right? I mean, how many kids come into the school each year, and the whole school's got to sit there for like 3 hours or more. It's like a graduation ceremony and be like, damn, like, I just want to go back to my dorm. Like, and they got to sit here while all these first years get sorted. I think that's kind of what's happening at this point. And the Sorting Headband is like, let's just move. So Nikola Vucevic sits down, and the Sorting Headband is just like, you fly under the radar. You've been on the Magic forever. The average basketball fan doesn't really know who you are, but you kind of embrace that now. Hufflepuff.
Man, Hufflepuff is stacked.
My boy Julius Randle
Like,
stumbles and bumbles up to the hat, but not anymore, actually.
all right, Julius Randle. I'm not the least bit surprised that you wanted to pawn this one off.
I don't want to be attached.
Khalil here is a recently reformed ex-Knicks fan who's just seen the light. Like,
I'm currently taking a leave of absence from Knicks fandom with a stipulation in my contract that I can rejoin the team if we make the playoffs.
So, in particular, here, Julius Randle, he had some frustration with you. Like, Julius Randle, you were probably one of the factors that really drove him away. So, for the sole reason that you're cunning enough to sync it up long enough to drive this lifelong fan away, Julius Randle, Slytherin. Yeah, he drives you away and then he breaks out.
He was like, Khalil, screw you. I'm going to show you that I don't need you. And that's what a Slytherin would do.
Damonte Sabonis.
Yes.
And so you would think, just based on what we did with Vucevic and a few others, that he'd join the long line of Hufflepuffs, but I don't agree with that. So Damonte Sabonis, very much like point guard, point forward, point whatever you want to call it type player. And except for Ben Simmons, I think a lot of that archetype of player, you have to be very smart, understand angles, passing lanes, crafty, how to get to the rim, not athletic. So Damonte Sabonis, Ravenclaw. Actually almost considered putting him in Slytherin for the sole reason that he's a legacy, like Draco Malfoy.
Yeah, that he's blonde. Yeah, he's blonde, and his dad played in the NBA. That kind of screams Slytherin. I know what you mean, especially with his hair this year. Okay, so let's recap the Eastern Conference that's standing on one side of the cafeteria. Kyrie, KD, Harden, the Nets are all Slytherin. Julius Randle is also Slytherin. So everyone in New York is a Slytherin. I think that makes sense. Ben Simmons, background Gryffindor. Jason Tatum, main character Gryffindor. Embiid. Okay, here we go. Oh, no, well, let's do the Ravenclaws first. Sabonis, and is that it? Is Sabonis our only Ravenclaw?
I think that's it. Only Eastern Conference Ravenclaw, Damonte Sabonis.
Yeah. And then now let's go through the Hufflepuffs. Embiid, Jaylen Brown, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Bradley Beal, Zach LaVine, and Nikola Vucevic. 6 players, nearly half the Eastern Conference All-Stars are Hufflepuff. And I just think that that's so telling that everyone's been calling the East soft for years. The connotation of Hufflepuff is soft. I think that's why the Nets are the favorite, is because they're like the only
they're the evil empire.
They're like the only assholes that are like, yeah, we're going to win the conference. That was the Eastern Conference. Now we move to the Western Conference. So first, I'll start off with, let's just get out of the way, LeBron.
The
King James. So LeBron, you know how in the movie, the sorting... Yeah, that's the movie I was referencing. You know how in Harry Potter, Draco sits down and before the sorting hat even hits his head, it goes, Slytherin. Yeah. So LeBron sits down and before the headband is even put on, it just goes Gryffindor. And with no explanation. And it just puts the king in Gryffindor where he belongs. That's it.
I vehemently disagree with this.
All right, let's talk.
So I think you fell into a trap that I worked very hard not to fall into, where like it's the J.K. Rowling book narrative of Gryffindors are like the protagonist.
Right. I intentionally fell into that trap.
Yeah, like because to me, LeBron I wouldn't even say Gryffindor is his second house.
Mm-hmm.
I think LeBron is Ravenclaw first, Slytherin second.
Go ahead.
Yeah, because on court he's like there's an argument he's the smartest player of all time, but then also Slytherin is like he's very like kind of like puppet stringy with like the league and like his teams and his off the court ventures and like which his off the court ventures are both again Ravenclaw and Slytherin, very smart but also very like puppet stringy, like with like Rich Paul and like Clutch and free agents and stuff.
Right. Yeah, I get that. I think I hear the Ravenclaw argument full out. Slytherin, I'm a little less convinced by. I understand the puppet stringiness, and you know how he gets Kendrick Perkins to say all these nice things about him on the jump. But I just think like it's almost like LeBron kind of wants to be Slytherin, but isn't really, if that makes sense. Like in his core, like in his heart, he's not actually. And I don't know. I think like you said the J.K. Rowling narrative of like, well, the main characters, the protagonists are Gryffindor. And I kind of willingly fell into that because for me, that's part of the fun of it is being like, who are the main characters of the league? But I think championships and MVPs and stuff plays into it, at least in the way I was doing it. I was kind of thinking like, if you've like won a lot of championships, and obviously a Slytherin could like snake his way into championships, but like I think I feel like if you're just like a really good leader and you win a lot of championships, that's kind of the whole MO of Gryffindor. Harry is the chosen one, and LeBron literally has a chosen one tattoo on his back. So that's my justification.
Right. And just like every sports show ever, we spent more time talking about LeBron James than everyone else combined.
Exactly. Well, let's talk about his teammate who's stepping up to the headband next, Anthony Davis.
Again, it's funny that like we just talk about there's so many like big things about LeBron that define like he could be in Gryffindor, he could be in Ravenclaw, he could be in Slytherin, and none of these things apply to Anthony Davis. None of them. So Anthony Davis, I see like in New Orleans, you were uber talented, but even when your team had the most success, you were like that was playoff Rondo, there was Drew Holiday, there was DeMarcus Cousins, and like you were the best player by far, but you never really wanted to take the challenge of being the man that being a Gryffindor entails. And even with the Lakers, he's a champion. Like he's more comfortable with LeBron being that guy. Some people might, so Slytherin maybe because you forced your way to New Orleans, but it wasn't in a particularly malicious way. James Harden.
Yes.
There's no real way to ask for a trade without coming across as a little bit of a jerk, but he did it as like non-maliciously as you possibly can. So
for sure.
Not a bad guy. And I do think, again, you're mostly good dude, but I'd say Anthony Davis, Hufflepuff.
I think there is an argument to be made for Ravenclaw because of how in so many situations he hasn't been the man, but he's been so statistically the best. And I kind of equate that to Ravenclaw a little bit, but I'm not going to argue with Hufflepuff.
So it's funny, so in my notes for Anthony Davis, I actually have background Hufflepuff, much like Ben Simmons was a background Gryffindor. Think like, again, Hannah Abbott, Justin Finch Fletchley, like someone who's like, he's not even like a main Hufflepuff.
Like he's not even Cedric.
Diggory. Yeah. He's not like Cedric Diggory or even like Ernie McMillan.
Yeah. Man, I feel like we're doing Anthony Davis a little dirty here. Hope he comes back from the injury and this proves us wrong. So next up is Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi's suddenly sitting in the Sorting Headband chair and people didn't even realize he got there. He was so quiet. And the Sorting Headband is like, interesting. All I know about you is you're quiet, you're cold, you're calculating. You know, you value defense and mid-range shots much, much more than the average superstar. But also, you are hyper efficient. You are clutch, and the Sorting Headband also, if you didn't know, loves nicknames. And so it can't resist. It says, Kawhi, you're in Ravenclaw. Ravenclaw. It has to be. It just has to be.
Uncle Dennis is a Slytherin. Sorry. Uncle Dennis is a Slytherin.
Yeah. Paul George is waiting in the wings, but we're going to stagger the Clippers and the Jazz here. So, Neel, why don't you go next? And big man Rudy Gobert walks up.
All right. So Rudy Gobert walks up, puts on the headband, and the headband is confused. He's like, wait, you're French. Why aren't you at Beaubaton with Fleur Delacour? All right, fine. You want to be here? Let's do this. You are like kind of a kind of one of the last traditional centers. Like, so part of that entails like being a little physical, setting some hard screens, like being a little like just kind of a little dirty, but like not super dirty. But like there, I was going to give you a pass, but then the COVID thing happened. You were not just selfish. You handled the whole thing like kind of a dick.
Yeah, that's fair to say.
So Rudy Gobert, Slytherin.
And with that French accent, that's kind of Slytherin too. Like you could just see him chilling in the Slytherin dorm, being like, "That's Harry Potter. He's going down." All right, Kawhi's teammate now is like, "Hey, what about me?" Paul George raises his hand, and they're like, "Oh yeah, come on up." And he goes up to the Sorting Headband, and the Sorting Headband is like, "Ooh, PG-13, the boss. You're a problem in the regular season. I mean, you put up some stats that are like MVP numbers, unreal shooting numbers to start this year. You kind of talk a big game in a sense. You really feel like you belong with this elite group, and sometimes you have moments where you kind of show that. Your Pacers playoff moments early on, where you were dapping up LeBron and exchanging big shots with him, doing these Gatorade commercials and stuff where you're hitting game-winning shots. And the truth is that you kind of come up short whenever it matters most. You hit the side of the backboard, if you will, when it matters most. You also haven't shown loyalty in the past. Obviously he was traded from Indiana and OKC, but he had some say in those trades. So when I think of all this, someone who's has all the tools, has all the potential, has all the skills, is really, really good, but then maybe comes up short in the final moments, or doesn't have that good guy factor at the end of the day. I put Paul George in Slytherin.
There's nothing to be said with your LeBron argument. Like, that got me thinking. Does every championship team need a Gryffindor?
I think you could make that argument, even if it's like your 10th man off the bench. You might need a Gryffindor. So let's complete the Jazz duo. Actually, there is a Jazz trio now that got in. So I think it's cool if you do two in a row, Neel. Why don't you do the Jazz backcourt, Donovan Mitchell and Mike Conley?
All right. So Donovan Mitchell. So Spider, you think creepy Spider? You think Spider, creepy crawlies? Maybe Slytherin, but no, not Donovan Mitchell. Like, you watch Donovan Mitchell play, and so great scorer, very like creative scorer, crafty, can get a lot of shots, but especially this year, not the most efficient scorer.
I agree.
Yeah. So hear me out here. I think despite that, Donovan Mitchell has never met a shot he's afraid of. Donovan Mitchell, Gryffindor. Then his teammate, Mike Conley, steps up. Longtime listener, like very old first year.
Yeah, very old first year. Yeah. I wonder if there's like any 18-year-olds that like show up at Hogwarts and are like, I'm a first year.
Okay, so Mike Conley steps up in the hat, and it's like, the headband, puts it on, and the headband's like, not you seeing too many gray hairs amongst the first years. There's like, so I can see you played in Memphis for a long time. Like, so you definitely had a lot of that Hufflepuff grit and grind, like blood in you. So it's entirely possible. But because that team got by on you guys got by sheer hard work. But the um, Hufflepuff side of the Grizzlies was really more Tony Allen, Zach Randolph than it was Mike Conley. Like,
Yeah.
and so veteran Mike Conley, that wily veteran, comes into a brand new system, like picks it up immediately, and now the Jazz are the best record in the NBA, especially veteran Mike Conley, Ravenclaw.
Moving on to the Phoenix Suns. Chris Paul steps up. He pretends like he's bumped by one of the other students for a second and complains for a foul and doesn't get a whistle. He sits down, sorting headband gets put on. CP3, you are one of the best leaders in the NBA. You're brave. But even though he's never made it to the finals, he has all these qualities of leadership and courage. And the sorting headband goes, again, loves puns, loves nicknames. So he goes, you are the point god, Gryffindor. And Chris
Not
Paul
as good.
Chris Paul gets put into Gryffindor.
Chris Paul is the best pure traditional point guard in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
Which, as you just talked about with Mike Conley, is a very Ravenclaw type set of traits. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no way Chris Paul's Hufflepuff. That we can all agree on.
Right.
Dude beats up Hufflepuffs in the yard.
So Devin Booker steps up, puts on the headband. The headband is like, so I just did Donovan Mitchell. You're exactly the same, Gryffindor.
I can buy that it's like a premature Gryffindor. Now we got Nikolai Jokic does the Sambor shuffle through the aisle and sits down.
Very slowly.
Yeah, very slowly, but very effectively. And the sorting headband goes, you are one of the best analytics, from an analytics fantasy perspective, you are one of the best players in basketball right now. You maybe have the best basketball IQ in the league right now. You are a great passer. You have great court vision. You know, you have all these, floor general point guard tendencies. And just like we've been talking about, says Ravenclaw.
That's a no-brainer.
I feel like LeBron is like already, no matter which house he gets put in, he's already going to every single table and like recruiting.
Well, he's decided to take his talents to Ravenclaw.
Yeah. Keeping the international vibe going, why don't you talk about Luka Doncic?
So I see Luka, much like Nikola, who I just got done with. You're very smart. You're very crafty on the court. Great passer. Great court vision. So you have a lot of Ravenclaw in you. But you're also a very likable guy, like very like charismatic, enjoyable. But I see, unlike a lot of people, like the sorting headband, I watch your games. I see how you poke and prod at the refs. Like I see like how you're kind of like you're a barker. You're very kind of like cunning in a sense of like, oh, again, working the refs, or like, oh, you're in the post, like, oh, you'll throw your elbow into a guy's gut to get a little space from 12 feet out. Like, and even by NBA superstar standards, you're a little bit of a whiner. Yeah. Luka Doncic, Slytherin.
We got Steph Curry now walking up to the sorting headband.
I know where this is going.
And the sorting headband is like, you are the leader of your offense. You even changed the game forever once you started shooting from 35 feet. You also, kind of like Jason Tatum and some people we've talked about before, have no off the court issues, which I think is a big thing sorting headband takes into play. And, even though you've got a lot of Ravenclaw-ish things about you, being super analytics heavy and shooting so many threes and probably playing for a Ravenclaw Can we say that the Warriors are a Ravenclaw team? Steve Kerr is maybe a Ravenclaw coach.
Very, very much so.
Yeah. But because of this kind of boldness of being like, I'm Chef Curry, I changed the league, I'm a unanimous MVP, the sorting headband goes Gryffindor.
All right, Zion, another first year.
Ah, adorable.
One of the bigger first years we've ever seen.
Yeah, Percy Weasley is like, come on this way. Oh my God, you're huge.
And Zion, you're very charismatic, so likable. You play the game with so much joy. Like honestly, there's as much innocence as a 285-pound man can possibly have. I'm gonna put you right next to the kitchens because let's be honest, Hufflepuff.
Yep. Is Dame the last Western Conference, or am I missing any?
No, that's the
I
end
think
of
he's
mine.
last, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
I had Mike Conley at the end of my list, but we did him already.
Yeah. All right. So Dame, completely stone-faced, walks through the aisle, and everyone's kind of like, "Whoa, that's a bad man." And he sits down in the Sorting Headband, kind of says similar things to what he said for a few other players that have sat down already in the Western Conference, which I think is kind of becoming a trend in the Western Conference. And he goes, another great leader, another just brave, ruthless, courageous leader who, as you would say, Neel, has never met a shot he doesn't like. This man will shoot it from 40 feet and end your season. You're also loyal, maybe loyal to a fault. So you would be a great Hufflepuff. You would be a great Hufflepuff. But sort of like we saw with James Harden, Dame speaks up a little bit. And he's like, I understand I'd be a great Hufflepuff, but I want that weight on my shoulders. I want the responsibility and the bravery that it takes to lead my team into battle against the best, even if we're underqualified, even if we're the underdog. I kind of want to be out of my league a little bit. That's where I'm most comfortable. And so the Sorting Headband is like, are you sure? You would do great things in Hufflepuff. You could raise Hufflepuff to another level. And then suddenly Dame Time steps back from 35 feet and at the buzzer wins the House Cup. And Gryffindor, shouts the Sorting Headband.
And Paul George sulks at the Slytherin table, insisting it was a bad shot.
Yeah. Neel, can you quickly recap the Western Conference?
So, really filling out the Gryffindors, we have LeBron James, Steph Curry, Dame Lillard, Chris Paul, Donovan Mitchell, and Devin Booker. Like big Gryffindor contingent in the West.
Yes. So there were 6 Hufflepuffs in the Eastern Conference, and there are 6 Gryffindors in the Western Conference, which again, I think works perfectly in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
And just being like, the West is so much better than the East.
Yep. So Hufflepuffs, we have background Hufflepuff Anthony Davis.
Oh man, killing him.
Hufflepuff Zion Williamson. A couple more Ravenclaws here. So we had Mike Conley, Nikolai Jokic.
Okay, all right. So one more Ravenclaw than the Eastern Conference.
Yeah.
Only 3 Ravenclaws in general.
Yeah, not a very Ravenclaw heavy league.
Yeah, which I think also says a lot.
At Slytherins, you have Rudy Gobert. Also Ravenclaw, Kawhi Leonard. Almost forgot.
That's right.
My headcanon has it in Slytherin, so I forgot.
Right. Yeah, so it was Kawhi, Jokic, Conley were Ravenclaw.
Yeah, and the Slytherins, Bobaton transfer, Rudy Gobert, Donovan Mitchell. I'm sorry, not Donovan Mitchell. Sorry, Luka Doncic and Paul George.
Yeah. So a pretty balanced conference outside of Gryffindors, whereas the Eastern Conference was really just all Hufflepuff and Slytherin. And then
Hufflepuffs and the New Yorkers.
Yeah. And then the Western Conference is pretty balanced outside of the Gryffindors. All right. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Neel.
Happy to be here.
We'll see you next time.